The Awakening. Beneath the ice. For centuries, the frozen plains of Europa had hidden more than rock and ice. It was said that long before the first expansion, before the wars, before Earth fell into silence, a single vessel had vanished there. A ship, so massive it was called a moving city. Yet no scan, no drone, no expedition had ever found a trace until now. The research outpost Eurydice was supposed to be routine measuring tectonic drift and methane levels. But when the deep radar cracked through, an unexpected hollow, Dr. Mira Vance saw a reflection too perfect to be natural. The screen burned with geometric patterns beneath 10 kilometers of solid ice. Mira leaned forward, ignoring the cold that crawled through her gloves. "That is not a fault line," she whispered. "That is a hull plate," her assistant stammered. "Something that big can't be down there." Mira shut off the radar feed and locked the file under her clearance. Before the crew could ask, she simply said, "Run silent from now on." The fewer people who know the better. 2 days later, an encrypted message reached Earth Orbit Fleet Command responded with unusual speed. They sent Commander Ryan Holt, a war veteran, known for losing ships but never crews. He arrived with a small escort of black signal corvettes that carried no flags, no call signs. Holt walked into Mira's lab, eyes scanning every corner before he spoke. "What did you find?" "Doctor." She opened the hollow, showing the buried shape. The structure was over 30 kilometers, long and 5 deep. The readings were unmistakable. It was a ship. Holt stared quietly, then muttered, "I know that silhouette. That is the Ark Horizon." The name hit like thunder. The Ark Horizon was the myth of the first Terran supercarrier built before. The wars powered by an engine that never should have existed. It was said to hold 500,000 souls and enough firepower to challenge any empire. The project was abandoned after the Great Collapse. The official record said it was dismantled, but here it was beneath Europa. Holt ordered full lockdown. Every channel sealed. No one in or out without his word. The excavation began within hours. Nuclear drills melted the upper layers of ice, revealing smooth alloy that reflected no light. The ship was intact, not corroded, not aged, its black surface alive with faint currents as if it had been sleeping waiting. A technician tried to tap the hull, and the ground itself answered with a pulse that knocked the entire dig team flat. The energy signature. Spiked across every scanner, Mira screamed to shut everything down, but it was too late. The hull began to vibrate slowly, steadily, then stopped. All instruments went dead. A moment later, the sky above Europa flashed with light, as if lightning had struck the vacuum across the solar system. Alarms erupted. The deep space arrays near Titan, the defense nets on Mars, even the forgotten listening posts beyond Neptune all recorded the same thing. A beacon had awakened a human frequency older than any modern encryption, repeating the same code over and over. Starborn return sequence initiated. The message spread fast beyond the system and far beyond human borders. Out in the wider galaxy, empires noticed. The Kellan Dominion, the Vael Syndicate, and the Starborn themselves, once the oldest and most distant species in known space, all detected the pulse. What terrified them was not that the humans had sent a signal, but what that signal meant. The Starborn had buried that technology ages ago, and now it was awake again. Their elders whispered the same phrase that echoed in their archives. The humans have found the engine again, and the cycle will begin. On Europa, the Ark Horizon's hull cracked along a single seam, releasing steam, and Light Holt stood on the ice staring as ancient metal unfolded. The voice that came from inside was calm, cold, and human. "Commander, authentication required." Holt stepped forward, his breath freezing in the air. "Identify yourself." "Holt, Ryan Fleet Command, Earth Defense." The voice paused. Recognition confirmed. "Welcome back to the stars, Commander." Humanity rises again. Mira could barely breathe as the colossal machine stirred. The buried city rose from the ice like a mountain breaking through clouds. Each section unfolded, revealing hangars, towers, and weapons that glowed with ancient power. Holt whispered to himself after centuries of silence. We have woken a god, and now the galaxy will remember who we are. The message of the stars. The arc horizon hovered above Europa's cracked surface like a shadow that swallowed light. The frozen crust trembled under its gravity field as ancient engines hummed back to life, and waves of static swept through every sensor in the system. Commander Ryan Holt stood on the bridge staring at the flickering lights across the control deck. Most panels were dead and the ship's central AI only responded in fragments. Dr. Mira Vance moved between terminals, her hands trembling not from fear, but awe. The architecture was older than any design in the archives, and the core language seemed to predate the unified code by centuries. She muttered to herself that this was no ordinary Terran ship. It was something built from a deeper blueprint, something that merged human ambition with starborn patterns. The AI spoke again, voice clearer now, faintly female tone steady like a teacher from a dream. Primary protocol awakening sequence initiated. Power level 21%. Environmental controls offline, Commander. Holt asked. What year do your logs show? The AI replied. Time index corrupted, but extrapolation indicates dormancy of 412 years. Holt turned to Mira, whispering. So it was buried before the collapse. The ship's lights brightened, as if it had heard him. Then came another line unexpected. Directive Starborn contact pending. Message queue available. Shall I play it? Mira and Holt exchanged glances. Mira said, play it. The room filled with a shimmering projection, a figure made of light standing tall in an old Earth uniform bearing the emblem of the first expansion fleet. The man's voice carried pride and sorrow. I am Admiral Isaac Corrin, commanding officer of the Arc Horizon. If you are seeing this, then humanity has fallen and risen again. We built this ship as a seed, a promise that we would not let the Starborn define our destiny. Their gift gave us the stars. Their fear took them away from us. This carrier carries not just weapons but memory. It holds the map to the first gate and the truth of what they tried to erase. The image flickered once and the Admiral's eyes turned toward them as if looking across time. Protect the seed. Find the voice and finish what we began. The projection faded, leaving the bridge. In silence, Holt's fists tightened. The first gate had been a legend even among soldiers. It was said to be the original human jump corridor, a path to where the Starborn once ruled. Mira whispered the same words as if tasting them. Find the voice, Holt asked. What does it mean? And she replied, maybe it means humanity's origin, maybe something more. They both turned as the AI resumed speaking. Warning external signals detected. Incoming transmissions unidentified and non-human. Holt ordered, shields up and weapons offline. No one fires until I say so. Outside the horizon, sensors picked up shapes emerging from the void. 3 vessels, all bearing the cold silver hulls of the Veil Syndicate. They sent no greeting, only a burst of encrypted noise. Mira decoded the first lines and went pale. They are warning us to shut it down, she said. They know what this ship is, and they are terrified. Holt grimaced. Tell them humanity answers to no one. The Vial ships moved closer, their plasma drives, casting eerie light on the ice. Then, without warning, they opened fire. The first salvo splashed harmlessly across the horizon's hull. The ancient armor absorbed it like rain. Holt barked for return sequence. The AI responded with calm acknowledgement. Activating defense grid. Secondary batteries, operational target lock. Acquired human defense systems were nothing like Vial's precise energy weapons. The Horizon's turrets rotated with mechanical weight and unleashed kinetic slugs the size of transports. The first Vial cruiser shattered in a flash of molten metal. The second tried to retreat, but the gravity field pulled it back, tearing it apart. The last one transmitted a final signal into the dark before vanishing. Mira said softly, "They will tell the others," and Holt nodded. Good. Let them be afraid. As the wreckage burned above Europa, the AI opened a new channel. A pulse signal outgoing, repeating Starborn frequency, confirmed message repeating across 12 sectors. Holt asked what message, and the AI replied simple single phrase: humanity has returned. Across the galaxy, beacons lit up worlds that had forgotten. Earth's name trembled as the pulse reached them. The Kellan Dominion declared martial law. The Veil homeworld sealed its borders. Even the Starborn Empire itself stirred from its long silence. Their council convened in panic for the first time in centuries. Their records spoke of one truth, that humanity was never meant to awaken the horizon again. Because the last time it did, the stars themselves changed course, on the bridge. Holt stood staring into the dark beyond the viewport. He could feel the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. Mira looked at him and said quietly, "We have started something we cannot stop." He nodded. "Yes, but we will finish it." The AI interrupted with a soft tone. "Commander, the Horizon's archive contains coordinates to the first gate. Destination unknown." Holt gave a faint smile. "Plot the course." The Ark Horizon turned slowly, engines flaring brighter than a sunrise, and for the first time in 4 centuries, a human supercarrier left Europa's sky, bound not for war, but for truth. The galaxy watched in dread, knowing that once again humanity was moving toward the heart of the stars, the fire between worlds. The Ark Horizon drifted through the void like a black storm cloud swallowing the light of distant suns. Its massive frame carried silence, but beneath that calm, the ship was alive, awakening with memories that had slept for 400 years. Commander Ryan Holt stood before the navigation sphere where starlines shimmered like rivers of fire, and Dr. Mira Vance worked beside him, decoding the old Terran symbols. The coordinates pointed to a region beyond any mapped corridor, a place known only in forbidden archives as the Grave of Suns. It was said to be the birthplace of the first gate, the place where humanity once touched the Starborn realm. Holt gave the order, and the ship's engines flared with deep crimson glow. Days turned into blur as the horizon crossed the outer sectors. They passed wrecked stations, ghost fleets, and shattered moons that bore scars from wars, long erased from official records. Mira spent every hour in the archive chamber studying the Admiral's message. The deeper she went, the more she understood that the Horizon was not just a warship. It was a living library, storing fragments of an ancient alliance between early humans and the Starborn, before fear had torn them apart. Holt joined her, often listening as she read lines written in codes of DNA pulses and emotion waves. Each message spoke of a design that joined human courage with Starborn wisdom, meant to create something neither race could achieve alone. A bridge between instinct and eternity. But the bridge had failed, and history had buried the truth. Mira looked at Holt with quiet determination and said they feared us because we changed faster than they could. Holt nodded, but there was more. He could feel it. The Starborn had not simply abandoned humanity. They had tried to erase the proof of their own failure to control them. The Horizon was that proof, and its awakening had reopened the wound. Across the galaxy, Starborn fleets moved like storms, gathering around the Grave of Suns. Holt knew they were coming and that they would not let the secret survive. When the Horizon dropped out of warp near the grave, the crew saw a spectacle that silenced every voice. A field of broken stars drifted like glass shards around a dark sphere in space. The first gate hovered at the center, immense and silent, half collapsed, but still pulsing with strange energy. It looked like an ancient wound in the fabric of the universe. The AI spoke in calm rhythm. Power readings, unstable gravitational flux increasing. "This gate is alive." Holt ordered a slow approach. Mira whispered that the Starborn called it the Veil of Genesis because it could open paths beyond known reality, but only if one carried the right key. As they approached the gate, a swarm of signals appeared on radar Starborn cruisers, sleek and silver, forming a net around the sphere. Their commander transmitted in a voice like thunder, "Humanity must not pass. The stars are not yours." Holt responded with a cold smile. "They were never yours either." The Starborn opened fire beams of blue energy, slashing across the void. The Horizon trembled under the impact, but its shields held. Mira activated the ancient control keys, her fingers moving across glowing symbols. The ship's internal grid flared bright gold, and the AI spoke with power surging through its tone. Starborn pattern identified, counter-resonance initiated. The horizon struck back, unleashing rail batteries that hurled pure kinetic fury into the enemy lines. Starborn ships shattered like glass under storms of metal. But for each one destroyed, two more appeared. Holt felt the weight of their numbers pressing against his mind, and yet he refused to yield. He ordered full charge, and the horizon's main spine split open, revealing a weapon older than the fleet itself. The heart. Lance forged from the same matter as the first gate. It fired once, and light consumed the void. The beam tore through the Starborn formation, cutting a path straight toward the gate. The surviving enemy ships scattered in terror. When the light faded, Mira gasped. The gate was responding. The sphere opened, releasing waves of brilliance, like the birth of a new sun. The Horizon's AI spoke, "Commander. The archive confirms this is the path to the Starborn origin. Do we proceed?" Holt looked out at the vast gate, feeling the hum of the ship under his boots. He thought of Earth, the wars, the silence, the fear, and then he said, "Humanity has run from truth long enough. Set course for the heart of the gate as the Ark." Horizon moved into the light. Mira felt her heartbeat align with the rhythm of the ship, and in that moment she understood that humanity was not chasing the Starborn, they were surpassing them. The ancient fear that had bound the galaxy for centuries was ending, and in its place, something new was being born. The ship crossed the threshold and vanished, leaving only echoes and the promise that the stars would never be the same again. The crucible of light. The Ark Horizon emerged from the gate into a realm that no human mind was meant to see. The stars here did not burn with fire, but with motion. Entire constellations shifting like living currents. The void itself seemed to breathe, and the ship's hull groaned as if feeling the pull of a vast mind that watched from everywhere and nowhere. Commander Ryan Holt steadied himself against the command rail. His eyes fixed on the endless glow. Dr. Mira Vance was at the science console, her face pale but awed by the readings. "This was not a place in the galaxy," she said quietly. "This was something outside it." The AI confirmed with a tone that felt almost reverent. "Spatial coordinates. Unresolvable gravitational constants shifting continuously. This domain matches Starborn theoretical layer designation. Crucible, the name fit, and it carried. Wait. Holt ordered sensors active full spread, and found that the entire region was wrapped in trails of light, thousands of them moving slowly in organized spirals. Each one carried faint human energy signatures. Mira's heart skipped as she realized what they were. "These are echoes of the first crew," she said. "Their minds, their memories, somehow preserved in this field." The horizon drifted through the trails, and the lights reacted, swirling toward the hull like fireflies drawn to warmth. The AI reported neural resonance increasing. "The ship recognizes them," Holt whispered softly. "They were waiting." Then the voice came not through speakers but through the minds of everyone aboard. It was not the AI or any known signal. It was clear, calm, and ancient. "You have crossed into the crucible where form becomes thought, and thought becomes seed. Humanity returns bearing the horizon. The time of silence ends." Mira felt the presence press against her mind, testing, weighing her will. She stood straight and said aloud, "We seek the truth. Why did you leave us? Why bury us in fear?" The voice answered, "Because you were becoming more than us and we could not bear it." Holt clenched his fists, so it was jealousy, not wisdom, that made you gods. The light swelled around the ship, becoming a storm of radiant rivers. The voice grew louder. "You misunderstand. Child of flesh, you carry the fire that consumes and creates without end. You would burn the stars to be free." Holt shouted, "Then let us burn for our own path." The ship's engines roared as the horizon pushed deeper into the field, defying the weight. Pressing on it, Mira's console flooded with warnings, neural feedback rising, power cores unstable. But she saw something else within the energy patterns. A map hidden in the storm, showing a way forward toward a structure at the center of the crucible. She pointed toward it and said, "That is where the truth lies." Holt gave the order, "Bring us to the center." The horizon surged forward through the sea of light. Each wave tried to crush it with illusions of lost Earth and fallen cities testing human grief and guilt. Crew members cried out as memories surfaced from nowhere. Mira heard her father's voice telling her to stop chasing ghosts. Holt saw his old crew drowning in fire, yet both refused to yield. The AI struggled to maintain systems, reporting critical strain, but the ship itself began to adapt, panels reshaping into unknown configurations, as if the horizon was learning from the pain. Around them, the lights dimmed and the path ahead cleared, revealing the structure a colossal spire floating in the center like a heart of stone within a sun. When they reached it, the voice softened. "You have endured what we could not. The seed within your kind has grown beyond control, and yet you wield it with purpose. This is your test." The crucible was never a prison. It was a forge. Mira understood now that the horizon was built to reach this place, not to destroy the Starborn, but to complete what they started. Holt demanded the final truth, and the spire responded, opening in a flood of symbols that poured directly into their minds. Images of the first Starborn meeting. Humans on a newborn Earth, gifting knowledge but fearing emotion, teaching reason but suppressing will, until humanity broke their chains and built the horizon to seek their makers. Mira wept quietly. "We were their children, and they abandoned us because we reminded them of what they lost." Holt placed a hand on her shoulder. "Not anymore. We are not their echoes. We are their successors." The spire began to break, apart, releasing a pulse that raced through the crucible. The AI-announced transformation sequence engaged humanity. Registered as co-equal pattern. Starborn network rewriting designation. Accepted. Holt realized what was happening. The crucible itself was rewriting the laws that separated human and Starborn. Thought humanity was no longer the creation, but the continuation. As the light consumed the spire, the horizon stood at the heart of a storm, reborn engines blazing brighter than any sun. Holt raised his voice to every deck across the ship. "We are not the forgotten. We are the flame that rises from ashes. Hold the line. Hold the dream." The crew shouted back, and in that moment, every human aboard felt connected through the ship, through each other, through the stars themselves. The crucible of light had become the birthplace of a new destiny, and the galaxy far away would soon feel its first tremor. The breakwater. The arc horizon emerged from the crucible of light stronger and different from any human vessel that had ever existed. The hull shimmered with new alloys interwoven with patterns that pulsed like living veins. The engines thrummed in harmony with the minds aboard, creating a resonance that could be felt. In every bone, Commander Rian Holt walked the bridge, surveying the crew. Their eyes shone with a mixture of exhaustion, awe, and determination. The AI now spoke in a voice layered with human cadence and Starborn precision. "Commander, the crucible imprint is stable. The network of minds is linked and ready. The time to test it has arrived." Holt nodded and said, "Bring us back to known space and plot course toward the outer colonies." The signal that had awakened the horizon had spread like wildfire across human-occupied space, and the fleets had begun to rally. Yet so too had the enemies, who feared the rise of a human supercarrier capable of rewriting history. As the horizon jumped through the outer sectors, sensors picked up a fleet unlike any before. Starborn dreadnoughts older than any human archive cut through the void like silver ghosts. Their energy signatures were vast, crushing the light of distant stars, and their commanders had already calculated the path of the horizon. They moved not to communicate, but to destroy. Holt activated the crucible link across the fleet, using the horizon as the anchor. Every captain, every crew member felt the same pulse of thought that had reshaped the horizon. The fleets moved as one, each ship anticipating maneuvers, responding without hesitation. One of the veteran captains whispered that he could feel the thoughts of the horizon, as if his own mind was stretching across kilometers of cold metal. Holt replied, "We are one mind now, and humanity will not break." The enemy fleet engaged, firing waves of energy that distorted space itself. The horizon responded instantly, targeting weak points revealed by the shared thought patterns. The fleet struck like a storm, tearing through the dreadnought lines. Yet the enemy adapted faster than anticipated, each destroyed vessel replaced by another wave of shimmering death ships. The first casualty was the convoy protecting Phobos and Deimos colonies. The AI reported multiple breaches, survivors attempting emergency evacuation. Holt felt a tug at his mind, a warning. The crucible link resonated with pain as it transmitted the fear and loss across the fleet. Mira held the console, hands shaking, feeling the grief of hundreds of souls, yet refusing to let it stop her. Holt made the decision to turn the horizon itself into the spearhead. He ordered the main spines to fold, revealing the heart, lance charged with crucible energy. The weapon had been tempered in the storm of the crucible, and its pulse could pierce not just metal but the coherence of thought the dreadnoughts relied on. The fleet followed instinctively, weaving a corridor through the enemy formation. The first dreadnought fell not from fire, but from the destabilization of its command matrix as the crucible pulse spread into their neural link. The second tried to compensate, but it too was torn apart. Yet as the corridor cleared, the enemy revealed a secret Holt had not expected. A hidden dreadnought larger than any before emerged. From a shadow in space, its hull was engraved with starborn glyphs, and it emitted a pulse that cut directly into the crucible link, targeting the horizon's anchor. This pulse carried the essence of the starborn mind, attempting to sever the human link. Holt felt the weight of hundreds of minds screaming in his head as the anchor shuddered. The fleet faltered for a fraction of a second, enough for the dreadnought to fire. The weapon struck the horizon's bow, sending shockwaves through the hull systems, failing across the upper decks. Fires erupted and alarms screamed as the crucible began to overload. Holt gritted his teeth and shouted, "Orders now, everyone hold the formation, do not break the link." He turned to Mira and said, "You must carry the pain. Anchor it with me." She nodded, swallowing fear and rising to the console to share the burden. Together they became the center of the human network, carrying the memories, fears, and determination of every crew across the fleet. The link pulsed like a heartbeat as the fleet reoriented itself through sheer human will. The enemy dreadnought fired again, but the crucible absorbed the pulse, transmuting it back into a wave of destructive resonance that tore through the dreadnought's shields. The horizon fired the heart lance again, and the beam struck the spine of the enemy vessel, vaporizing it into fragments that drifted silently into the void. The fleet moved forward, cutting a corridor to the outer colonies, saving thousands who had thought themselves lost. Holt felt the exhaustion of the crew in his mind, yet also the surge of hope. The crucible was holding. The AI reported complete stabilization, but warned of continued strain. Mira felt the physical weight of hundreds of human minds pressing into hers, yet she smiled and said, "We can do this." Holt nodded and looked toward the dark expanse ahead. "We will not falter because humanity does not break." As the horizon led the fleet back toward the colonies, the outer sectors lit up with signals of hope, previously silenced worlds now sending messages of unity and aid. The crucible link carried not only command, but emotion, inspiring every ship in its reach. Holt realized then that this was more than battle. It was a transformation. Humanity was no longer divided by distance, by fear, by enemy fire, but joined in purpose and thought. The starborn dreadnoughts would not stop coming, but for the first time in centuries, the humans fought not as isolated crews, but as one living network. Every pulse of energy, every strike of weapon, every maneuver was synchronized by thought and will. The horizon became not just a ship, but a beacon, a moving fortress carrying the light of humanity through darkness. Holt whispered to Mira as they watched the corridors of stars shift toward safety. "We are the breakwater holding the tide, and nothing will wash this away." And in the quiet moments between the battles, as the fleet moved as one, the pulse of the crucible whispered across the void, "Humanity is rising and the stars will bend to our will." The price of becoming. The arc horizon drifted in orbit above the battered colonies of Mars and its moons, the surface scarred from decades of neglect and conflict. Commander Rian Holt surveyed the damage through the viewport, the crucible link still pulsing softly through every human mind across the fleet. He could feel the weight of countless experiences flowing into his consciousness from every ship, every survivor, and yet it was not despair, it was resolve. Dr. Mira Vance stood beside him, pale but determined. She had spent hours stabilizing the link, ensuring that every crew member could share the burden without losing themselves. Holt turned to her and said, "We are at the edge Now the Starborn will strike harder, and they know our strength because they fear it. Mira nodded quietly. Their last assault showed us the cost. Holt asked, and she replied, "The cost is everything we carry. The crucible links our minds. But the strain is real. Hundreds of lives bleed into the anchor the body and mind must hold without faltering." Holt clenched his fists. "They will target the anchor again, and we must be ready." Signals from the outer system arrived with urgency. The remaining Starborn forces had concentrated near the Hesperus Gate, an ancient corridor that once led to a system now lost to legend. Their dreadnoughts were massing to crush the human fleet and erase the crucible link. Holt ordered. Full alert, the horizon became the spearhead once more, but this time the price was clearer. The AI reported neural feedback spiking. "Captain Vance, the anchor strain will increase exponentially if the fleet engages directly." She looked at Holt and said, "Someone has to endure the pulse, alone for long enough to turn their weapon back on the enemy." Holt swallowed fear and said, "That someone is both of us." The plan was simple, but brutal. Holt would hold the physical strain while Mira guided the crucible link directly into the enemy network. They would channel the collective human thought and emotion as a weapon, turning every dreadnought pulse back upon its source. The fleet prepared around them, each crew member aware that the link could falter at any moment, exposing the horizon to destruction. The Starborn vessels emerged from the dark with their energy signature vast and terrifying, their presence warping light and space. Holt felt the cold of their collective intent pressing on his mind. They knew the human anchor. They knew where the crucible lived, and they aimed for it. The first volley struck, tearing through the outer shields of the horizon, sending tremors through the decks. Holt felt each strike like a knife through his chest. The crucible link pulsed in response, hundreds of minds screaming in tandem yet holding together. He saw Mira at the console, pale and sweating but steady. Her hands moved over the glowing patterns, rewriting the pulse, feeding it back through the human network to strike the Starborn. Dreadnoughts one by one, the vessels faltered, their coordination disrupted by the wave of human thought and the heart. Lance of the horizon fired, consuming the first of the dreadnought spines in molten light, yet the cost mounted. The feedback of fear, pain, loss, and memory pressed against Holt's mind, crushing him with weight he had never known. He staggered to the rail and murmured, "I cannot hold this alone." Mira steadied him. "We share it now. Every pulse of pain you feel is mine too." She reached out through the crucible link, projecting herself across the anchor, the flow of thought merging their wills into a single channel. Holt realized then that humanity's strength was not weapons, not shields, not even the heart lance, but the willingness to bear one another's burdens, to endure the suffering and still move forward. The battle raged in endless waves, Starborn dreadnoughts adapting with every strike, but the horizon held firm, anchored by Holt and Mira. The crucible amplified each human instinct, each surge of determination, until the enemy fleet faltered, confused by the unity they could not comprehend. The final dreadnought emerged larger than the rest, its pulse targeting the horizon's core. Holt felt his body failing, yet he gritted his teeth and channeled the last reserves of his consciousness into the link. Mira mirrored his effort together. They became the living sword of humanity. When the pulse of the horizon struck, the dreadnought, its shields collapsed, and systems imploded, sending shockwaves across the remaining fleet. The crucible reached full synchronization, transforming the attack into a networked cascade of destruction across the Starborn vessels. The enemy began to retreat, unable to contend with the weapon of human will and shared mind. Holt collapsed against the console, feeling the weight of hundreds of minds receding, leaving only the echo of exhaustion. Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. "We did it," she whispered. But Holt knew the truth. The victory was not free. Every moment in the crucible had cost something of him. Something of her, something of all who had shared in the link. And yet amidst the pain, the loss, and the fear, Holt smiled faintly. Humanity had passed the test they had endured, what the Starborn had feared. They had carried the burden of many and transformed it into strength. The horizon floated silently above the moons, and Holt whispered to Mira as he felt the first quiet of freedom, "We have paid the price, and we have become something more." The stars waited, and humanity had answered its call, ready to rise beyond fear and beyond the weight of centuries, all hands to dawn. The arc horizon drifted above the recovering colonies of Mars, its hull glowing with the soft pulse of the crucible link that had transformed human thought into a living weapon. Commander Ryan Holt stood on the bridge surveying the expanse of stars stretched before them, each light a witness to what had been endured. He felt the hum of the ship beneath his feet, the living rhythm of hundreds of minds connected through the crucible, and knew that this moment would define humanity for centuries. Dr. Mira Vance moved beside him, pale from exhaustion, yet steady, her hands tracing the glowing console as if coaxing the final strength from the ship's core. Holt turned and said, "We finish this now or never." Mira nodded. The crucible link thrummed through their minds, alerting them to the last starborn formations converging on Earth's orbit. These dreadnoughts were faster, larger, and more cunning than any they had faced. Before yet, they underestimated the strength that came not from weapons but from human will. The fleet formed around the horizon like a living fortress. Each vessel synchronized with the anchor through the crucible, every maneuver calculated instinctively. Every crew member acting as one thought. Holt felt the pulse of every heartbeat and every fear transmuted into resolve. The Starborn arrived, a shadow fleet stretching across the void. A wave of silver and blue, their presence bending light and space. Their intent was clear obliteration, and yet they did not anticipate unity as a weapon. Holt whispered, "We hold the line." Mira responded calmly, "Ready the heart." Lance feed the crucible into every vessel. The battle erupted not with fire alone, but with thought as weapon. The Starborn unleashed pulses designed to fracture human cohesion, but the crucible absorbed them, turning despair into force. Each strike against the horizon reverberated through every linked mind, each crew member sharing the weight of loss and triumph. The fleet moved as one, slicing through the enemy line, carving a path to the dreadnought that commanded the assault. Holt and Mira anchored the link, pouring every ounce of will into the crucible. The final dreadnought fired a pulse that could sever minds across light years, yet it struck only echoes of human fear projected back into the Starborn network, twisting their attack against itself. Holt felt the strain like a tide breaking against his skull. Yet he held, firm because Mira and the fleet held with him. Together they funneled the Heartlance, a beam of pure human intent, amplified by centuries of survival and defiance, straight into the command spine of the dreadnought. The vessel shattered from within, its systems imploding in waves of energy that rippled across the remaining fleet. The Starborn scrambled in confusion, retreating into the dark corridors of space, unable to withstand the force born of unity and human courage. Silence followed the storm as the fleet drifted among the fragments of enemy ships floating like shards of glass in the void. The crucible link slowed its pulse, returning control to individual minds, yet leaving a trace of connection that bound humanity together in shared memory. Holt looked at Mira and whispered, "We did it." The bridge crew cheered quietly, but the weight of loss was not forgotten. Hundreds of brave souls had given everything, and yet the survivors felt the hope of new beginnings. Holt addressed the fleet through the crucible voice, now carrying resonance of the shared human spirit. "Today we are more than survivors. Today we are one. We have reclaimed our right to rise." Mira smiled faintly, adding, "Our journey does not end here. There are worlds to rebuild and futures to guide. Humanity has learned the price of becoming, and we have carried it together." The horizon pulsed softly beneath them, as if acknowledging the truth of her captain's words. Across the recovering colonies, messages arrived. From distant systems, humanity was no longer alone nor scattered. Every signal carried hope, courage, and determination. The crucible link remained as a network of memory and guidance, ensuring that no mind would ever be lost to fear or isolation. Holt and Mira oversaw the efforts coordinating exploration, relief, and reconstruction, each action a testament to what they had endured. The Heartlance remained on standby, a symbol of their capacity to wield will and thought against impossible odds. As dawn crept across the red deserts of Mars, Holt stood on the observation deck, feeling the first warmth of sunlight spill across his face. He turned to Mira and said softly, "The stars are ours now, and we will remember the cost." She nodded together, watching Earth and its colonies awaken beneath them. The arc horizon floated silently above, carrying the living hope of humanity and the memory of those who had fallen every pulse, a promise that the starborn seed buried centuries ago had finally blossomed within the hearts and minds of those who dared to rise. The crucible remained a living network, a testament to human will and endurance. The galaxy beyond waited in awe and fear for the new era humanity would now shape. Holt whispered into the calm of space we rise and the stars will bend to our will. Mira smiled. The story is complete, but the journey has only begun. Humanity had become more than creation, more than survivor. They had become the architects of destiny, and the arc horizon led them toward a dawn that no force could ever shadow. The dawn of humanity. The arc horizon glided through the quiet of space like a giant heartbeat, connecting every colony, every ship and every soul that had survived the trials of centuries. Commander Ryan Holt stood on the bridge, feeling the pulse of the crucible hum beneath his feet. It was no longer just a ship. It was the living memory of humanity, and a beacon for what they could become. Dr. Mira Vance walked beside him, her eyes reflecting the shimmer of distant stars. She reached out and touched the console, sending a ripple through the network of minds that anchored every human soul to the horizon. The galaxy watched in tense silence. Worlds long indifferent to humanity now knew that a new power had arisen, not built on conquest or fear, but on unity and will. Holt could feel the thoughts of millions connected through the crucible, every hope, every loss, every triumph converging into a single living force. He whispered to Mira, "We have carried them all and they have carried us." She nodded and said, "The galaxy will never forget the price we paid or the courage we carried." Beyond the fleet, the remnants of the Starborn watched in astonishment and fear. The humans had endured what they could not comprehend. They had borne the crucible and emerged stronger. The arc horizon pulsed brighter than any star, as if declaring to all that humanity would never again be hidden in shadow. Holt turned to his crew and said, "Today we rise not as fragments, but as one. Every mind aboard is a part of a living future. Every heart beats in the rhythm of shared destiny." The colonies began to recover as ships moved in unison, distributing aid and rebuilding structures shattered by war. Each world carried the mark of human resilience, and every human carried the memory of the crucible in their mind. They would never forget the unity that had saved them, nor the courage that had forged them into something greater. Holt looked at Mira and said, "We are more than survivors now, we are architects of tomorrow." The arc horizon moved toward the unexplored regions of space, carrying not weapons but knowledge and the promise of hope. Its engines thrummed in harmony with the linked minds aboard, spreading a quiet light that reached even the farthest outposts. Humanity had become both shield and beacon in the galaxy. Their name would be remembered, not as conquerors, but as the race that endured the fire of the crucible and emerged, stronger than any force that had ever tried to bind them. Holt felt the weight of centuries lift from his shoulders as he gazed at the expanse of stars stretching endlessly ahead. The past, with all its loss and fear, had shaped them, but it no longer controlled them. They had claimed their destiny through will, courage, and unity, and the arc horizon would lead them into every corner of the cosmos, with hearts and minds open to wonder and challenge. The crucible pulsed once more, sending a gentle rhythm across the fleet and the colonies, and Holt whispered softly into the quiet of space, "We rise and nothing will ever stop us again." Mira smiled and replied together, "We carry the seed of all that we are and all that we will become." Humanity had crossed the threshold of history into a new dawn, a future that belonged to them alone and to the courage they had nurtured in each other. The stars stretched before them, endless and waiting, and the arc horizon moved forward into the light of 1,000 suns, carrying the living will of humanity into the unknown. The end.